I always imagined it would feel like fireworks, like the moment you take a breath at the top of the roller coaster, knowing the drop was going to be thrilling. But instead, it felt like the air had been quietly sucked out of the room. The rooftop buzzed with chatter and laughter, the gentle clinking of wine glasses and silverware blending with the soft instrumental jazz playing in the background. Golden string lights shimmered above our heads, casting a warm glow on the crowd gathered to celebrate Axis Dynamics' most successful quarter yet, and supposedly, to celebrate me. I adjusted the strap of my navy blue jumpsuit and glanced around the long dining table. Everyone looked happy, cheerful even. After 5 years of blood, sweat, and weekends spent troubleshooting bugs no one else could crack, I had earned this. I had sacrificed nights, turned down vacations, mentored interns, picked up the slack when entire teams collapsed under pressure. This was supposed to be my moment. For months, Derek, our head of engineering, had dropped enough hints to build an entire Lego set. "Madeline, you're the future of this team," he'd say in passing. "We're just waiting on the right moment," he'd tell me with a wink. That moment was tonight. At least that's what I had let myself believe. At the head of the table, Derek stood, his tall frame backlit by the city lights. He tapped his glass with a fork, commanding silence with that trademark smirk on his face. Everyone turned toward him. "Tonight," he began, his voice smooth and authoritative, "I want to take a moment to recognize someone truly exceptional, someone who has brought incredible energy, insight, and innovation in such a short time with us." I smiled, heart pounding. Here it comes, the moment I get to exhale. "It's rare," Derek continued, "to find someone who makes such an impact in just 4 months." My smile froze. 4 months? I turned slightly, just in time to see Ava Brooks, our newest hire, lower her glass, her eyes wide, lips parting as if in disbelief, as if she didn't know. Derek beamed. "Ava, your leadership, strategic thinking, and fresh approach have exceeded all our expectations. Which is why I'm thrilled to officially announce your promotion to Director of Engineering." The applause was immediate and thunderous. I couldn't move. My fingers tightened around the stem of my glass as I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Around me, people were congratulating her, toasting, cheering. Meanwhile, I sat there, a statue in silk. Ava rose awkwardly, cheeks flushed, shaking her head as if she didn't believe it either. She gave a short speech. Humble, sweet. I barely heard a word. And then Derek looked at me, as if I had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. "And of course," he said, "Madeline has been a steady hand and an invaluable part of this team. We're all grateful for her consistency." Consistency. That word hung in the air like a punchline. I nodded, lifting my glass. "Ava absolutely deserves it," I said, my voice smooth and unwavering. "To Ava," Derek laughed. "Maybe she can teach you a thing or two already, huh, Maddie?" Ava gave a nervous laugh, her eyes flicking to mine. "Oh, I don't know about that," she murmured. But the damage was done. Everyone heard it. Everyone smiled politely and moved on. Everyone except me. I smiled wider. I laughed when I needed to. I made small talk and sipped my champagne. But underneath it all, my chest burned with humiliation, betrayal, and something deeper. Something alive. I stayed long enough for the final toast. Then, when the party finally died down and the rooftop began to empty, I stepped away into the night air alone. The harbor shimmered below, calm and quiet. I pulled out my phone. The screen glowed against the dark sky as I typed out a single, simple email. Subject: Resignation letter, submission. Dear Derek, please find my official resignation letter attached. Effective immediately. Best, Madeline. I stared at it for a heartbeat. Then I hit send. And for the first time in a long, long time, I breathed. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Monday was coming, and Derek Stone was about to find out what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. Monday morning arrived cloaked in early sunlight, casting long streaks of gold across the concrete buildings of downtown San Diego. I stood outside the Axis Dynamics headquarters, coffee in hand, heart steady. I wasn't coming into work. I was coming in to finish what I started. The receptionist blinked when she saw me walk through the glass doors. Good morning, Madeline. I gave her a polite nod. Morning. If she had seen the resignation email, if anyone had, it hadn't made its way through the rumor mill yet. But it would. Soon. I walked past the open plan workstations where my coworkers gathered around the espresso machine, chatting about the weekend. A few looked up and smiled. A few looked confused. And one of them, Ava, froze when she saw me. She stood at her desk, framed by a congratulatory balloon someone had tied to her monitor. Her eyes met mine for a fraction of a second and then darted away. I wasn't angry at her. This wasn't about her. This was about Derek. I calmly walked to my desk, powered up my computer, and sipped my coffee. I didn't need to check my inbox to know he'd read my email. I just needed to wait. At 9:12 a.m., sharp, the door to Derek's office swung open. Madeline, he said loud enough for the whole floor to hear. My office, now. Every head turned. I rose slowly, deliberately, straightened the cuff of my blazer, walked the same steps I had walked 100 times before, but today the air felt different. As the office door shut behind me, Derek already had a printed copy of my resignation on his desk. He didn't sit. He paced. You're resigning? He asked, like he couldn't believe his own voice. Just like that? I took the seat across from his desk, composed. I told you in the email, it's effective immediately. But why? He ran a hand through his hair. Madeline, this is insane. We didn't even talk about this. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. I tilted my head slightly. Kind of like how you didn't talk to me about Ava's promotion? He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. Let me guess. It wasn't personal. She just outperformed me. Right? He stared at me. She's been here 4 months, Derek, I said, calm but direct. 4 months. I've given you 5 years. He pulled his chair out and finally sat down, frustration creeping into his posture. I appreciate you. Of course I do. You've been the backbone of this team. No, I said softly. I've been invisible, reliable, convenient. That's not the same. His eyes narrowed. So what's the plan? You storm out over one decision and just, what? Join a competitor? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. I don't need to. Someone else already reached out. Someone you might remember. He paused. Who? Julian Rayner. His entire body tensed. Julian had once been Axis's most strategic board member. Sharp, driven, visionary. But he and Derek had clashed often. Too often. And when Derek maneuvered Julian out last year, most of us saw it as a power grab. Julian had walked out without looking back. He's building something new, I continued. A company with purpose, one where people aren't overlooked because of politics and ego. Derek's lips thinned. You turned that down when he first offered. I was loyal to you then. I leaned forward just a little, my voice low. But Friday night changed everything. He stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe in that moment I was. I called Julian the second I left the party, I said. And I accepted. You're making a mistake. No, I said, standing up. I made the mistake staying here as long as I did. I turned for the door. You won't be able to come back. He snapped behind me, a final desperate grasp for control. I stopped, looked over my shoulder. I won't need to. Then I walked out, leaving him behind. At my desk, I didn't linger. I forwarded my resignation letter to the entire leadership team with a brief professional note. Subject, official resignation. Effective immediately. To all, as of today, I am stepping down from my role at Axis Dynamics. It has been a chapter I will not forget. Best regards, Madeline Shaw. The email sent. The office fell silent. And I knew this was only the beginning. It didn't take long. Barely 15 minutes after I sent my resignation email to the executive team, the floor began to shift. Not physically, of course, but something about the energy. The way people started whispering behind coffee mugs, the way glances lingered too long, the way even the most casual typing came to an awkward stop when I passed by. And then there was the look on Ava's face. She stared across the room at me, wide-eyed and uncertain. Her lips parted, as if she was about to say something, but no words came. Just silence. Then she quickly looked away, pretending to be focused on the charts glowing on her screen. I didn't care. Not about her discomfort. Not about the stares. I felt lighter with every box I filled from my desk drawers, my water bottle, my framed photo of Dad and me at my college graduation, a small cactus I had kept alive through countless overnighters, tiny symbols of all the time I gave to this place. And then I heard the voice I had been waiting for. Madeline? I turned. It was Rachel, one of the few coworkers I'd ever trusted at Axis. Her expression flickered between shock and admiration. Is it true? She asked quietly. You're leaving? I nodded, lips twitching in the faintest smile. Effective immediately. She exhaled hard and shook her head. Wow. I mean, I get it. I do. But I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. Neither did Derek, I murmured. She laughed. A bitter, knowing laugh. He's an idiot. We all know you should have gotten that promotion. More heads started peeking up. People began hovering around, pretending to grab paper from the printer or get coffee from the break room, all of them within earshot of our conversation. Even Ava kept sneaking glances over her monitor. She was shrinking in her seat now, like the weight of what happened was finally catching up. Rachel stepped closer. Is it true you're going to Julian's company? I raised an eyebrow. That rumor's out already? You kidding? She said, lowering her voice. People have been whispering it since Friday night. Derek looks like he hasn't slept in 2 days. I didn't respond, but Rachel caught the flicker of satisfaction in my eyes. Clients are freaking out too, she added. You know how many of them requested to work with you directly? Half of them are panicking now that you're gone. I simply continued packing. There was no need to brag. The consequences were speaking for themselves. Just as I closed the lid on the box, a new email pinged into my inbox. Subject: Urgent. Let's talk. From Derek Stone. Time: 10:37 a.m. meeting. Request: 15 minutes from now. Location: my office. I sighed quietly. There it was. Desperate men don't send formal calendar invites. They grasp for structure when their world begins to fall apart. I stood, picked up my now full box, and carried it to the front desk. Could you keep this here for a moment? I asked the receptionist with a kind smile. She nodded nervously. Of course. I walked back to Derek's office, heels clicking against the marble tile. And when I stepped inside, I saw the change immediately. He looked different now. The smug confidence was gone. His collar was wrinkled. His hair hadn't been styled. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a man who realized, too late, that he had bet on the wrong person. Thanks for coming in, he said stiffly. I sat down, legs crossed, hands calm in my lap. You asked to talk. So talk. He leaned forward. Madeline, look, I admit things weren't handled the best on Friday. I didn't blink. That's one way to describe it. He hesitated. What if we work something out? I tilted my head slightly. Define something. I'll match whatever Julian's offering, he said quickly. Salary, title. Hell, I'll give you more autonomy, full control of the engineering team. We'll write a new structure around you. I laughed softly. You don't even know what Julian is offering me. Does it matter? He snapped. We'll match it, that's not the point. Then what is? He paused. You belong here. You've built something here. I leaned in just enough to make my next words land. You don't get it, Derek. It's not about the money. It's not even about the title. It's about respect. His jaw clenched. I don't want to work in a company where I have to threaten to leave before anyone notices I exist. I don't want to be told to take notes while someone else reaps the rewards of my years of labor. His mouth opened, but I didn't let him speak. I'm not angry anymore, I said, rising to my feet. I'm just done. Then I walked out. And for the first time since I joined Axis Dynamics, I didn't feel like I owed them anything. The following Monday, I stood outside a sleek glass building nestled in the heart of downtown. Its design was minimal, modern, and full of movement. just like the company it represented. Rayner Solutions. Julian greeted me at the door himself. "Welcome home," he said simply. The moment I stepped inside, I knew I was in a different world. No pretense, no hierarchy games, just a pulse of innovation and urgency humming through every office, every conversation, every piece of paper. The difference wasn't just visual, it was visceral. People moved like they mattered, like they were seen. I was shown to my office on the top floor. Real walls, real windows, a real door that closed. I placed my things down and turned to look out at the ocean. The same view Derek once called too distracting to give me. The onboarding was swift but personal. Colleagues introduced themselves with genuine warmth, not performative small talk. In our first leadership meeting, Julian sat at the same table as the rest of us. No ego, just presence. Halfway through the agenda, he turned toward me. "Madeline," he said, his tone direct and trusting, "I want you to take the lead on our next flagship initiative. We're restructuring our AI integration pipeline, and I can't think of anyone more capable to guide it." Just like that. No games, no false praise, no forced humility, just trust. I paused for a heartbeat, out of habit, almost waiting for the catch, but there wasn't one. "I'd be honored," I said. A few heads nodded around the table. I caught smiles. Not of envy, but support. Encouragement. It felt strange. Good strange. I got to work immediately, diving into architecture reviews, team assignments, vendor assessments. Every hour felt productive, not performative. For once, I wasn't just reacting, I was building. Later that week, while I was deep in planning a roadmap for the quarter, my assistant popped her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, Madeline. There's a call on line 1. They said they're from Eureka Health and want to speak directly with you." My fingers froze on the keyboard. Eureka Health, one of Axis Dynamics' biggest accounts. I picked up the phone, keeping my tone calm. "This is Madeline Shaw." "Madeline," came a warm, familiar voice. "It's Mark Riley, CEO at Eureka." My heart kicked, but I kept my voice steady. "Hi, Mark. I wasn't expecting your call." "I heard you moved to Rayner," he said. "We've had some concerns with our current support. The transition after your departure hasn't been smooth. I was wondering if you'd be open to a conversation about possibly moving our contract to your new firm." I smiled slowly. "I'd be more than happy to talk, Mark." By Friday, the ink was dry on the transfer. Eureka became Rayner Solutions' newest major client, and they weren't the last. The following week, EdgeSync Technologies and Well-Tide Analytics reached out as well. Both firms had been my responsibility at Axis. Both cited the same reason for contacting me. "We trusted you," one of their directors said. "We don't know who's running things over there now, but it's not the same." They didn't leave Axis because I asked them to. They left because I wasn't there anymore. And as each contract was signed, each kickoff meeting scheduled, each thank you email sent, I couldn't help but wonder what Derek was thinking right about now. But I didn't need to wonder long. It began with a text message on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. "Rachel, Madeline, you would not believe the chaos over here. Derek is spiraling. Emergency meetings every day. Clients are bailing left and right. He's been snapping at everyone." I stared at the message, then smiled to myself without looking up from my laptop. I was in a strategy session with Julian and 2 department heads reviewing a new client integration roadmap. Everything about this new environment, the clarity, the pace, the respect, was the polar opposite of what I'd left behind. "Rachel," follow-up. "Oh, and Ava? Completely out of her depth. She doesn't even know how to run the weekly compliance updates. Guess who used to handle those?" I didn't reply immediately. I just sat there, letting her words sink in like a quiet wave of validation. After the meeting ended, I stepped into my office and called Rachel. Her voice came through immediately, low and incredulous. "He looks like he's aged 10 years in 10 days, Madeline. The investors are pissed. People are calling it the Shaw Exodus." I laughed. "That's dramatic." "It's true," she said. "Half the clients that reached out this week asked for you by name. One of the project managers tried to smooth it over, but they weren't having it. 2 have already left, more are threatening to follow. And then she lowered her voice even more. There's talk that the board might intervene. Word is they're watching him closely now. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. That night, while I was reading through onboarding assessments from our new hires, another email pinged into my inbox from Ava Brooks. Subject, wow. I hesitated, then opened it. Hi, Madeline. I just wanted to say, I had no idea about any of it, about how much you were doing behind the scenes. It's been overwhelming since you left, and honestly, I'm not sure I should have accepted the promotion. You didn't deserve what happened. I'm sorry, Ava. I read the message once, then again. She wasn't the enemy. She was just a convenient piece in someone else's power play. I typed a short reply. Hi, Ava. Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate the message, and I wish you the best moving forward. Take care, Madeline. I meant it. She wasn't responsible for Derek's decisions. But now she was living in the mess he left behind. That Friday, just before I was about to shut down for the weekend, my assistant stepped in again. Sorry, Madeline. There's a call for you online too, from Dawson & Co. They said they've worked with you before and they're thinking of transferring their account. My heart skipped. Dawson & Cody was one of Axis's most prestigious clients. Long-standing. High value. The kind you don't lose. I picked up the phone. Madeline Shaw, I answered. Madeline, this is Mark Dawson, said the smooth, confident voice on the other end. Word gets around fast. Heard you're doing big things at Rayner. We were wondering if you'd be open to a conversation. I leaned back in my chair, voice calm. Of course, Mark. What can I help you with? And just like that, the unraveling of Derek Stone wasn't just internal. It was public. Rayner Solutions was rising. Axis Dynamics was cracking. And I hadn't even started trying. By the end of the following week, Rayner Solutions had signed 3 more major accounts, all of them former Axis clients. Each one had reached out to me directly. Each one cited the same concern: instability, poor leadership, and a lack of clarity since my departure. I never asked them to leave. I didn't have to. The truth had a funny way of surfacing on its own. And then one quiet Friday afternoon, it happened. An email popped into my inbox. From Derek Stone. Subject, a proposal. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit there for a full hour while I finished my team's performance reviews and approved 2 new hires. Only when the sun began dipping below the skyline did I finally click on it. Madeline, I'd like to have a conversation. I believe we can come to a mutually beneficial arrangement if you're open to it. Let's set up a meeting next week to discuss options. Looking forward to your response, Derek. I stared at the screen for a long moment, letting the irony settle over me like slow-falling snow. The same man who dismissed me with a backhanded compliment, who told me to take notes, who celebrated my replacement at the party I thought was for me, was now asking for a meeting. Because his company was on fire. Because I was no longer there to hold it together. I drafted my reply carefully. Subject, a proposal. Hi, Derek. I'm available for a brief meeting Monday at 10 a.m. Let me know if that works for you. Best, Madeline Shaw short. Controlled. No urgency, no emotion, and certainly no desperation. When Monday came, I walked into the Axis Dynamics building with the calm confidence of someone who had nothing left to prove. The same receptionist who had once greeted me every morning now looked up at me like she'd seen a ghost. People turned as I passed by. Some nodded. Some avoided eye contact. All of them knew why I was there. I stepped into Derek's office at precisely 10 a.m. He stood when I entered, trying to summon his old air of authority, but it didn't quite land. There were shadows under his eyes. His tie was askew. His smile was thin. Madeline, he said, gesturing for me to sit. I did, slowly, calmly. I won't waste your time, he began. We need you back. I didn't reply. I just watched him. He leaned forward. I underestimated your role here. I see that now. And I want to fix it. If you come back, I'm prepared to offer you a substantial raise, full decision-making authority over your department, and a senior executive title." He sat back like he had just handed me a golden ticket. I tilted my head slightly. "Let me get this straight. You had 5 years to recognize my value, 5 years to promote me, 5 years to treat me with respect. And now, after everything falls apart, after the clients leave, after the investors panic, now you want to reward me?" He flinched, just barely. I leaned forward. "Let me ask you something, Derek. If I had never walked out of that party, if I had clapped for Ava and kept my head down, would I be sitting in this chair right now?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence between us said everything. "You didn't appreciate me," I continued. "You exploited me. And now that the consequences have landed, you're offering me things I should have had years ago." He pressed his lips together. "Be smart about this, Madeline. You've got history here. A future." I smiled gently. "You're right. I do have a future. Just not here." I stood up, smoothing my blazer. He rose too, more out of instinct than conviction. "I never needed you," I said quietly. "You needed me. And now you finally understand why." I walked to the door. But just before leaving, I turned my head slightly. "You should take notes, Derek." Then I stepped out of his office for the last time. And this time, I didn't look back. Back at Rayner Solutions, everything was thriving. Our client list had nearly doubled. The AI operations team I was leading had exceeded every benchmark we'd set. My calendar was packed, but with purpose, not chaos. Each meeting ended with real decisions, real progress, no performative handshakes, no fake smiles, no one pretending to listen. This wasn't just a job. This was what work was supposed to feel like. On Thursday morning, while reviewing a proposal from a European research partner, I received a message from Rachel. "Rachel, Madeline, it finally happened. Derek's out. The board forced him to resign this morning. Word is, they couldn't recover from all the client losses." I leaned back in my chair, the corners of my mouth lifting slowly. There it was. Not vengeance, not cruelty. Just resolution. Rachel sent another message seconds later. "Rachel, honestly, the office feels weird today. Quiet. Everyone's walking on eggshells. But a few people said out loud what we were all thinking. This started the moment you walked away. It didn't make me smug. It made me feel free. Everything Derek had built was cracking, not because I sabotaged it, but because he never built it on anything real. Just convenience, vanity, control. He assumed I was replaceable. Turns out he was. Later that day, Julian stopped by my office with 2 coffees in hand. "One of those is mine, I assume?" I asked, smiling as he stepped in. "Of course," he said, handing one to me. "Thought you could use a moment." He sat across from me and tapped the folder I had open. "I saw the European proposal. It's strong. And Madeline?" "Yeah?" "I just want you to know, hiring you was the best decision I've made in the last 5 years." I paused. Those words meant more than he probably realized. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Really?" He rose and walked toward the door. "By the way, the press is asking if we're ready to announce your leadership on the new division." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean, go public with it?" He grinned. "I mean, lead with it." I nodded once. "Let's do it." When he left, I turned back to my screen. My inbox was filled with congratulations, project updates, and a few journalists requesting quotes. I scrolled past one subject line that caught my eye. Subject, forwarded, Axis PR statement on leadership change. I clicked it open and scanned quickly. It was a generic, sanitized corporate statement. "We thank Mr. Stone for his service and wish him well." No mention of why. No mention of the dominoes that had fallen. But I didn't need acknowledgement. The world already knew. I looked around my office, my team outside these glass walls, buzzing with new ideas and momentum, the sun glinting off the ocean. My reflection in the window, steadier now, stronger. This wasn't a revenge fantasy anymore. It was a reality I had built with grit, clarity, and choice. I sipped my coffee and smiled. Derek had once told me to take notes. Well, I did. And now, I was the one writing the script. It was a quiet Friday morning when I stood alone on the rooftop terrace of Rainer Solutions. The sky was soft with morning light, streaks of pink and gold stretching over the ocean. From this height, the city looked peaceful, small, manageable. I wrapped my fingers around a warm mug of coffee and just breathed. No emails, no panic, no pretending, just me. Standing where I was always meant to be. The last few months had passed like a storm clearing after a long winter. The company had grown at a pace even Julian hadn't predicted. Our ethics-first AI initiative was already getting international attention. I'd done interviews with Forbes, Wired, and 2 major podcasts. Investors were calling, not to ask questions, but to offer support. I wasn't chasing validation anymore. I was setting the bar. A soft knock pulled me from my thoughts. My assistant Kayla stepped out onto the terrace. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, "but the CEO of Lumentech just called. He wants to schedule a meeting," he said, and I quote, "whenever Madeline has time." I chuckled. "Tell him Monday afternoon, and send him the new portfolio draft." "Will do," she said, smiling. I turned back to the skyline after she left, the breeze lifting strands of my hair. Everything felt so far from who I was just a few months ago. Back when I was waiting for someone to recognize my worth. Back when I was silently absorbing every slight, every missed opportunity, every brushed-off contribution. I had once imagined revenge would taste like fire. But now I knew better. It tasted like freedom. And then, just as I was about to head back in, my phone buzzed with one final message from Rachel. "Rachel, so, rumor is, they offered Ava your old role. Temporarily. She declined, said she wasn't ready, said it never should have been hers in the first place." I read it twice, then smiled. It didn't change anything, but it mattered, because somewhere deep inside the walls of Axis Dynamics, they were finally speaking the truth out loud. And me? I had stopped looking back a long time ago. I took one last look at the water, then turned and walked through the doors of the company I helped build. Not out of obligation or survival, but because I chose to. Because I could. Because I finally understood my worth. And so did everyone else. The end.